because I believe so strongly in the message of public television. I believe so strongly in the idea that we have a spiritual deficit in this country, and that we don't have an information deficit. There's plenty of that, but there's a deficit of spirit, a deficit that says there's not enough of us that feel connected to the highest and the greatest part of ourselves. And these top 10 principles that I have put together here for this program, you might want to jot down. You might want to go into your desk and just take out a little piece of paper. But I think if you practice them and look at them and see them, they come from someone who's had a burning desire, but has also been living a life in which I have felt independent of the opinions of others in terms of whether or not I should or shouldn't be doing that. There's something that I allow to consult myself, within myself, rather than looking outside to see if this is right or not. And so let me just I'll number them and I'll go through them and I'll give you some examples of them, and you decide whether they're to your liking or whether they work or not. The first of these principles came from a Vedantic scholar in the 10th century. His name was Tilopa. It's not exactly bestseller books, but it's the kind of thing that really excites me, because I think of going back 1,000 years or 2,000 years and reading what some of the greatest minds had to say and how open they were to the potentiality that each and every one of us have for greatness. And this first principle says, as Tilopa put it, have a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing. One of the central principles of my life is that no one knows enough to be a pessimist about anything. And that each and every one of us, when we close our mind to what is possible for us or what is possible for humanity, closes off the genius that resides and lives in each and every one of us. Having an open mind doesn't necessarily mean finding fault with all of the things that you've been taught by others. It means opening yourself up to the potentiality and the possibility that anything and everything is possible. So having a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing really means finding within ourselves the ability to get rid of a trait that I find so common in the contemporary world. Do you know that most people that I meet spend their lives looking for occasions to be offended? They actually are out there hoping that they can find some reason to be offended. And there's no shortage of reasons. They're out there everywhere. The way this person dressed, what this person said, they turn on their TV, they hear the news, they're offended by this. Someone used language that they didn't like, someone doesn't share the same customs that you, and people all day long. In fact, if you keep track tomorrow, you will find probably 100 reasons that you can go around being offended. But a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing is a mind that says, I'm never looking for anything to be offended by. And that whatever anybody else out there has to say, my response to that is, that's an interesting point of view. I've never considered that before. I remember being interviewed for a morning television show, and the woman that was interviewing me said, how does it feel to be talking to audiences where people have all of these strange beliefs, these weird things that they come to? And it intrigues me, because one of the things that Emerson said is, in one of his very first essays, he says the first thing we have to say respecting what are called new views here in New England, where we are right now, is that they are not new, but the very oldest of thoughts cast into the mold of these new times. And that was in 1842. He was speaking about that. And this woman asked me the question. She said, Doesn't it offend you that there's people out there and they're talking about people using crystals to heal somebody? And I remember my response. My response was that if I've got hemorrhoids and somebody out there is convincing me that crystals are going to heal them, I'm ordering crystal chairs. Why not? I mean, all you have to do is understand something called a placebo. And what is a placebo? It's nothing more than a convincing belief. If I hand you this pill and say this pill is going to cure your arthritis, and you take it and the pill is just a sugar pill, but your arthritis disappears, I'm into buying those placebos. Where can I get some of those placebos? And it's true of everything. And it's when you think about all the things that we enjoy and what our life is like, it took people who had a mind that wasn't closed to allow us to make the progress that we've made. Progress is impossible if you always do things the way you've always done things. But the other word in this, what Talopa said, is be attached nowhere. Be attached nowhere. Attachment really means I am deluding myself into a belief that if I can't have or if I can't do this or that thing, then somehow I am going to become immobilized. So an open mind that is detached. In my most recent book, in A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, I have an observation. And it's an observation from Anthony DeMello, a man I respect enormously, a priest, who, in The Way to Love, puts it this way. Here's a great test for your relationships, especially the relationships that you're in with those whom you love, not your children, but your spouses and your lovers and so on. Try this test on for size. 1, I am not really attached to you at all. I am merely deluding myself into the belief that without you, I will not be happy. And 2, and here's the toughest test for non-attachment, I leave you free to be yourself, to think your thoughts, indulge your tastes, follow your inclinations, behave in ways that you decide are to your liking. How's that for a challenge? And so what most of us do in our relationships and why they are not as successful as we would like them to be is that we become attached and we tell ourselves that if this person behaves in a way that I find offensive, then I can't be happy. I make my happiness, my fulfillment dependent upon those people that I love being what I think that they should be. And detachment doesn't mean being a victim. It just simply means I know that I can make my life fulfilled and happy by having a mind that is open to everything and attached nowhere. The second principle is a very simple principle. It says you can't give away what you don't have. Now, it sounds ridiculous, okay? But it's more than what meets the ear as you hear this. You can't give away what you don't have. People who are not good at giving away love can't give away love because they don't have it to give away. If I want to give you a dozen oranges, I can't give you those dozen oranges unless I go out and pick up 12 oranges someplace. Otherwise, all it is just empty rhetoric. And the same thing is true of virtually everything in your life. You can't give away love for others if you don't have love in here to give away. If what you have in here is contempt, if what you have in here is anger, if what you have in here is fear, then these are the things you're going to be giving away in your life. And I've often thought, and I really believe very strongly that there's a law, sort of a law in the universe. I call it the law of attraction. And the law of attraction is one that works like this. You get back from the universe, from the world, what it is that you put out there in the world. And if you're putting out there into the world that I am not worthy of attracting something beautiful into my life, that the universe will respond back to you with exactly that message. And there are people who come to me and who came to me for years when I had my own counseling practice and so on, and they would say to me, I just keep attracting the same kind of people, the same kind of events, the same kind of losers into my life. Why is that? Why do I keep doing that? And I keep attracting an absence of abundance. I just can't seem to attract abundance into my life. I'm always behind the 8 ball. I'm never getting ahead. And I suggested to them, I said, did it ever occur to you that that's the very kind of message you're sending out to the world and out to the universe? That the ocean of abundance is there. And you can go to that ocean of abundance, and you can take a Mack truck, and you can fill it up 20 times a day, and take it out of there, and guess what? It doesn't impact at all the ocean of abundance. It doesn't even go down a zillionth of an inch. It's unlimited. Or you can go to the same ocean of abundance with a eyedropper, and you can just take this much out once a month and say, that's all that seems to be available for me. And the interesting thing for me is that when people go to this ocean of abundance, this unlimited world, all that I have is thine, it says in the holy books. All that I have is thine. It's all there for you. But if you believe inside that it's limited, that you can only get so much, that other people are going to get it before you do, then you'll find yourself creating that very same thing. And the even more interesting part about this, you can't give away what you don't have principle, is that if your message to the universe is gimme, 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 which is a lot of people's message to the universe. I want this from you, I want that from you, please give me this, I have to have that. That's what their prayer is like, that's what their message is, you know, and they say, I want this from the universe, gimme, gimme, gimme. The universe's response back to that kind of a mentality is exactly the same. The universe will say right back to you over and over again, gimme, gimme, gimme. And you'll find yourself never, ever arriving, but always being in a state of striving, always feeling as if you're being neglected, never feeling as if you have enough, always feeling as if you're being shortchanged, because you're constantly under the pressure to give, to get back what the universe is demanding from you. And the interesting thing about all of this, the irony of this, is that if you shift that and you say to the universe, to the world, how may I serve? How may I serve? The universe's response back to you is, how may I serve you? How may I serve you? And it's very intriguing. When you take your energy and your attention off of what you are demanding from the world, and instead saying, what can I give to the world? And it's really the basis behind that very famous line of the President John Kennedy's inaugural address. Ask not what your country can do, ask what you can do for your country. And the irony of that is, and I've learned that in my own life, that when I stopped thinking about what was in it for Wayne Dyer and how much could I get, and I began to shift and say, how can I help you? How can I give to you? What can I do for you? And people who write to me, I send them something. When I encounter somebody that needs help of some kind, I'm very often just giving that to them. And then I find that it just keeps coming back into my life. And once I shifted that energy off of what can I have into what can I give, it seemed to me that the universe responded back with the very same message. What can I give to you? And the most incredible and wonderful and beautiful abundance has flowed into my life in every way that I can possibly think of. You can't give away what you don't have. So take a look at an inventory of what you do have. How much do you love yourself? How much kindness do you have in you? How much peace do you have in you? How much joy do you have in you? And if you're able to give that away as many times as you can in a given day, watch and see how much more of that continues to show up and come back in your life. Okay? The third principle is one of my very favorites. It's called, there are no justified resentments. And this is a very difficult principle for many people to get, but one that I believe very strongly in. I was in a group one time of drug addicts and alcoholics. And I was one of the people that was a sponsor and leading this group. And the sign on the wall said, "There are no justified resentments in this group." And what I said to that group that night was, no matter what anybody says to you here, no matter what kind of anger comes directed towards you, no matter how much hate you may encounter showing up in your life, there are no justified resentments. Meaning that if you carry around resentment inside of you about anything or about anyone, and I'm talking about the person that you lent money to and hasn't paid you back, I'm talking about the person in your life that you feel was abusive in your life, I'm talking about the person who walked out on you and left you for somebody else, I'm talking about all of the things that you have justified in your heart and in your life that you have the right to be resentful about. And I'm suggesting to you that those resentments will always end up harming you and creating in you a sense of despair. I've often said that no one ever dies from a snake bite. The snake bite will never kill you. You cannot be unbitten. Once you're bitten, you're bitten. But it's the venom that continues to pour through your system after the bite that will end up destroying you. So now you have to take a look at all of the resentments that you may have in your life. And I'd like to suggest to you that I think there is a wonderful metaphor for this that I have created in my life for how to make this work. And I think that Regis Philbin is the one who's responsible for it, all right? My buddy Regis. There's a show called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire that has been popular all over the world. I was in South Africa, it comes on, all right? I was in Australia, and they've got their own Australian version. And in Greece, they have the Greek edition of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And basically, this show has two levels that you have to get to. Now, the first level is the $1,000 level. And at the $1,000 level, you basically have to answer a question like, on your hand, you have some digits. Those digits on your hand are called your feet, your nose, your ears, your fingers. And everybody who ever goes on the show has this horrible dread that they're going to go out on one of those questions, right? So basically, in order to get to the $1,000 level, all you have to do is answer 5 pretty simple questions in order to get to the $1,000 level. Now, on this program, the $1,000 level for you in this metaphor means that you will leave with something if you get this. At least get this. This is the $1,000 level. You must send blame out of your life for any conditions of your life. Blame has to go. All right? Now, blame means if you're sitting there with a disease, you say, without guilt, it's mine, I take responsibility for it. This means that if you have been through any tough circumstances in your life, this means if you have a minimal amount of financial security in your life, this means if your children don't get along with you, this means that if your neighbors are taking up a petition to get you out of the neighborhood, whatever it might be that's going on in your life, you name it, and everybody across this great country and across this world has a series of these things that you're willing to say, I am here because of the choices that I have made right now. I'm willing to say that. Even though it's difficult, and we know it's really not your fault. We know really there's a lot of people out there who are really bad, all right? But you're willing to say no blame. That's the first level, all right? That's where you understand no justified resentments. And then on the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show, there is what is called the $32,000 level. And the $32,000 level is not only an opportunity for you to walk away with a sizable amount of goodies, which you can walk away from tonight in this program, but it also is the door opener to multi-wealth. But you got to get to this in order to have an opportunity to move into these transcendent levels, all right? Millionaire spiritual status, all right? You got to get through these next 5 questions. And this $32,000 question, or level rather, comes to this. It came to me from a quotation that I used in the writing of a spiritual solution to every problem. I read a book that was written a couple of thousand years ago by Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras, the aphorisms of Patanjali. And one of those sutras, one of those aphorisms, observations that this brilliant man made almost 2,000 years ago was this. He said, if you become steadfast in your abstentions of thoughts of harm directed towards others, all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in your presence. Now this translates to blame, pretty basic, no more blame. I'm just not going to assign responsibility to other people for where I am, because now I have an opportunity to get rid of it. If I think someone else caused it, then I've got to wait for somebody else to change in order for me to get rid of it, and you might wait forever for that. But if I take responsibility for it, I can do something, including move on, which might be the most important thing to do. All right? But at the higher level, when there are no justified resentments, what you are doing is what St. Francis did, Francesco. What you are doing is you are at a place where you are sending love in response to hate. You are literally saying, no matter what comes my way, I am going to be steadfast in my abstention of thoughts of harm directed toward others. I'm going to work hard at, no matter what comes my way, having it come out of me what I want to come out of me, and that is love, and that is a higher energy. And if you can get to that level, Patanjali said, all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in your presence. I have a little girl, a precious little girl. I have 6 precious girls and 2 precious sons, but I have a little girl who is almost 12. And she loves animals like no one I've ever met in my life. I mean, her whole life revolves around animals. And when we walk in the woods, butterflies avoid me, fly away from people around, and they come and they land right on her arm, and it happens all the time. All living creatures, she couldn't have a thought of harm directed towards any living creature. And Patanjali said to us, all living creatures will cease to feel fear or enmity or anger in the presence of those who can send love in response to hate. That's what I mean when I say there are no justified resentments. What I'd like to do, I'd like to share a little story here with you. It's a very tender story. It was sent to me by someone who sends me beautiful things in the mail. And I call it the Teddy story. And I'd like to read this to you, if I can do it without tearing up. And this story illustrates this as well as anything I've ever seen. There's a story many years ago of an elementary school teacher. Her name was Mrs. Thompson. As she stood in front of her 5th grade class on the very first day of school, she told the children a lie. Like most teachers, she looked at her students and said that she loved them all the same. But that was impossible, because there in the front row, slumped in his seat, was a little boy named Teddy Stoddard. Mrs. Thompson had watched Teddy the year before and noticed that he didn't play well with the other children, that his clothes were messy, and that he constantly needed a bath. Teddy could be unpleasant. It got to the point where Mrs. Thompson would actually take delight in marking his papers with a broad red pen and making bold X's and then putting a big F at the top of his papers. At the school where Mrs. Thompson taught, she was required to review each child's past records, and she put Teddy's off until last. However, when she reviewed his file, she was in for a surprise. Teddy's first grade teacher wrote, "Teddy is a bright child with a ready laugh. He does his work neatly and he has good manners. He's a joy to be around." His second grade teacher wrote, "Teddy's an excellent student, well liked by his classmates, but he's troubled because his mother has a terminal illness and life at home must be a struggle." His third grade teacher wrote, "His mother's death has been hard on him. He tries to do his best, but his father doesn't show much interest, and his home life will soon affect him if steps aren't taken." Teddy's fourth grade teacher wrote, "Teddy's withdrawn and doesn't show up much interest in school. He doesn't have many friends, and sometimes he even sleeps in class." By now, Mrs. Thompson realized the problem, and she was ashamed of herself. She felt even worse when her students brought her Christmas presents wrapped in beautiful ribbons and bright paper, except for Teddy's. His present was clumsily wrapped in heavy brown paper that he got from the grocery bag. Mrs. Thompson took pains to open it in the middle of the other presents. Some of the children started to laugh when she found a rhinestone bracelet with some of the stones missing and a bottle that was 1/4 full of perfume. But she stifled her children's laughter when she exclaimed how pretty the bracelet was, putting it on and dabbing some of the perfume on her wrist. Teddy Stoddard stayed after school that day just long enough to say, "Mrs. Thompson, today you smell just like my mom used to." After the children left, she cried for at least an hour. On the very day, she quit teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, and instead, she began to teach children. Mrs. Thompson paid particular attention to Teddy. As she worked with him and his mind seemed to come alive, the more she encouraged him, the faster he responded. By the end of the year, Teddy had become one of the smartest children in the class, and despite her lie, became one of her teacher's pets. A year later, she found a note under the door from Teddy telling her that she was still the best teacher he ever had in his whole life. 6 years went by before she got another note from Teddy. He then wrote that he had finished high school third in his class, and she was still the best teacher he ever had in his whole life. 4 years after that, she got another letter saying that while things had been tough at times, he stayed in school and stuck with it, and would soon graduate from college with the highest of honors. He assured Mrs. Thompson that she was still the very best and favorite teacher he ever had in his whole life. Then 4 more years passed, and yet another letter came. This time he explained that after he got his bachelor's degree, he decided to go a little further. The letter explained that she was still the best and favorite teacher he ever had, but now his name was a little longer. The letter was signed Theodore F. Stoddard, M.D. But the story doesn't end there. You see, there was yet another letter that spring. Teddy said he'd met this girl and was going to be married. He explained that his father had died a couple of years ago, and he was wondering if Mrs. Thompson might agree to sit in the place at the wedding that was usually reserved for the mother of the groom. Of course, Mrs. Thompson did, and guess what? She wore that bracelet, the one with the several rhinestones missing. And she made sure she was wearing the perfume that Teddy remembered his mother wearing on their last Christmas together. They hugged each other, and Dr. Stoddard whispered in Mrs. Thompson's ear, "Thank you so much for making me feel important and showing me that I could make a difference." Mrs. Thompson came with tears in her eyes and whispered back, "Teddy, you have it all wrong. You were the one who taught me that I could make a difference. I didn't know how to teach until I met you." Isn't that a beautiful story? That symbolizes there are no justified resentments. Work at reaching that $32,000 level, the place where the only thing you have to send is love, because that's what's inside. And that's the message of our greatest spiritual teachers. That's all they ever had to give away. The next principle I call don't die with your music still in you. And who better to quote than Thoreau right here in Concord when he talked about some of us hear a different drummer, and we must march to the music that we hear. But all of you, everybody watching, everybody here in this beautiful parish, all of you have some music playing. And all of you have a heroic mission. There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it. And too many of us are afraid to listen to that music and march to it. You out there, I know you have a book you wanted to write. I know there's a composition you wanted to compose. I know there's a song you want to sing someplace. Maybe you want to raise horses out in Montana. Or maybe you want to open up an ice cream shop on Cape Cod. Who knows what it may be. Maybe you just want to travel and see the world. Maybe you want to go into a relationship with someone, but you've been afraid to, but your heart says it's the right thing to do. All of us feel something. And in Leo Tolstoy's famous novel, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, he asks this question that would be terrifying to me. He says, as he has his accountant from Moscow lying on his deathbed, contemplating the horror of this question, what if my whole life has been wrong? I've known what my music is. It's playing right now. As I stand here in front of you with these cameras and in this place, and as I sit down and write my books and tell the world what I know are my truths, I feel always completely on purpose and fulfilled. And no time will I ever come to the end of my life and say, what if my whole life has been wrong? Whoever you are, whatever that music is, however distant it may sound, however strange, however weird others may interpret it to be, don't get to the end of your life and know that you're going to leave and not have it played yet. Don't die with your music still in you. It's the message of the greatest teachers who've ever walked among us. It's the message I give to you today as one of the principles for success and peace in your life. The next principle I call embracing silence. And embracing silence is not that I say this to you because it's so important to be quiet. What I have learned, I have a dear friend, and many of you know, we've put out tapes together, we've appeared on stages all over the world together. He's like a brother to me. His name is Dr. Deepak Chopra, a medical doctor, and a dear and close friend. And whenever anything is going on in my family, if I'm having a problem with one of my children or with in my own life, and if I call him up and I'll say, Deepak, or his wife Rita, I'll say, Deepak, what do you think I should do? He always has the same answer, meditate. I'll say, yes, Deepak, I understand meditate, but I said, what do you think? He said, Wayne, go deep inside and meditate. Always meditate. I'll say, will you put Rita on? Wayne, meditate. I say, all right. And you know, I've learned a lot in meditation. But what I know most about getting quiet and getting peaceful is this, that there's only one power in the universe, and it doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it soul, spirit, consciousness, God. You can call it Louise. You can call it anything that you want. But as Alan Watts said, you can't get wet from the word water. It's not what we call something that gives it its substance. And this one power, this one force that flows through everything and allows everything to be, is indivisible. You can't cut it in half. You can't divide it. It's one. It's knowing the one. And everything in your life is almost always given a division. Male, female, young, old, tall, short, black, white, good, bad, up, down. These are all dichotomies. These are all these splits that we all have in our lives. The whole physical world that we live in and are immersed in, it's always immersed in this division. I used to teach a course at St. John's University in New York, and I used to tell my students when I was trying to teach this principle, anybody who can come to class and bring with them a magnet that only has a North Pole, I'll give you an A in the course. You don't ever have to attend another class. And no matter how thin they would slice that magnet, there was always the South Pole, because the physical world is made up of dichotomies. But we have to learn to fuse the dichotomies. And in fusing the dichotomies and blending the one, that's what silence does for us. That's why embracing silence is so powerful. Because no matter how many times you cut silence in half, it's like zero. You still only get silence. In Zen, they say it's the space between the bars that holds the tiger. And it's the silence between the notes that makes the music. These words that are coming out of my mouth right now come out of the silence. And finding that silence and embracing it means that you go to the place within you that you cannot divide. Just like you can't divide the source, the one, the spirit. You can't divide that either. It's only one. So when you go into your silence and you begin to practice meditation and you begin to make this a part of your life and embrace silence, what you discover is this is where you'll come to know your source. You'll make conscious contact with your source. I can't tell you how many people that have come to me who have suffered from serious illnesses, who've been given diagnoses that it's terminal and that you can't do it, who have gone out to the wilderness and have decided that I am going to commune with nature. And the transcendentalists, Thoreau and Emerson, they believed that nature was our source and that we were all products of nature. And if you can get back to your source, if you can get back to that feeling of being with spirit, that's where healing can take place. And I've had wonderful stories of people who've told me that it was when I began to embrace that silence that I began to feel more connected to my source. Embrace silence because it's a way to come to know God, to know your source. Both are indivisible. And the only experience you can have in your daily life that even comes close to a spiritual awakening is silence. The next principle I call giving up your personal history. And I learned it from a man named Carlos Castaneda, who once said that one day, he said, I finally realized that I no longer needed a personal history. And just like drinking, he said, I gave it up. And that, and only that, has made all the difference in the world. You know the nice thing about giving up your personal history is that if you don't have a story, you don't have to live up to it. All of us have these bags of manure that we carry around with us called our past. And the people who have done things to us and the events and the circumstances, all of this stuff that we use and we bond to. And we bond ourselves to these wounds of our past and we identify ourselves on the basis of these wounds. And every once in a while we set it down and we reach in there and we smear it all over ourselves. And then we wonder, why does my life smell so bad? I don't understand this. When in fact, the now, this moment, merging yourself into the now means that you may have been in a relationship. I had a woman from Holland who came over to see me whose husband had left her after 25 years. She had 4 children, and she just had been on the verge of suicide. And she was losing weight, and she was depressed, and she was taking all kinds of drugs for it, and she was getting sicker and sicker because she just couldn't get over it. And she came to a book signing that I was doing at a bookstore down in Florida. And she said, you've got to say something to me. You've got to say something to me that will help me to get over this. And I told her this line. I said, give up your personal history. Merge yourself here, now, into this moment. And those 25 years are something, if you want to understand how to do it, think of your past as, oh, this hat. And this is your past. Now, you can't just set this thing down over here and walk away from it and give up your personal history, because you'll always have it there to look back at. what you do is you pick up your past and you embrace it. You understand it, you accept it, as I had to go through these things that I had to go through in order for me to get to this place today, and the evidence for that is that I did. You don't need any more evidence. You did. And then you toss it. You toss it. You embrace it, and you toss it. And you merge into the now by giving up your attachment. And some of you have heard me use the metaphor of the wake. Alan Watts talked about the wake is not what drives the boat. The wake is just a trail that is left behind. That's all it is. And so is the wake of your life. And the wake doesn't make the boat go, and neither does the wake of your life, the reason why your life is going in the direction that it is. The wake is a trail that is left behind, and it's an illusion to believe that it is the cause of your suffering or your struggles or your difficulty. Give it up. Let it go. Embrace it, understand it, get help doing that if you must, and then move into the now. The next principle I call, it's from a line of Albert Einstein. He said, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. In order to work at solving these things called problems in your life, you have to change your mind. It is your mind where they live. It is your mind that created them. There is where you experience them. They're all illusions. You must change your mind. Literally rewrite your agreement with reality. One of the things I had said earlier is that one of the most difficult things to do in the world is to admit that you were wrong. Admitting that you were wrong is nothing more than saying, I have been making choices with my mind that have created things in my life that are not working. And I no longer intend to continue making those choices. I was wrong. You don't have to make a declaration of it. You don't have to go out and feel guilty about it. You just simply say, it didn't work. The relationship that I was in before, I behaved in these ways. I didn't realize that it wasn't working for me. Now I do, and this is where I choose to be now. The secret of a successful relationship is, to me, understanding that you put your attention and your energy in a person on what you love rather than what you don't love. Robert Frost said it so beautifully. We love the things we love for what they are. For what they are. Not for what they ought to be, not for what they used to be, but for what they are. So when you look into the eyes of a person you're in a relationship with, whether it's your children, you catch them doing things right as much as you possibly can. That's oftentimes takes a lot of hunting, but you'll find it. And when you think that my relationship isn't working, remember, it's in my mind. What am I thinking about that person? And if I could just change my mind and put my thoughts on what I love about this person and keep them there, that makes the relationship flourish. And there are people who go through their entire relationship history with no anger, no hatred, no bitterness, and only love. The next principle is, I call it treating yourself as if you already were what you would like to become. In other words, you get out in front of your life and you see yourself as having already what you know you'd like to have and deserve to have. My children know how to do this perfectly. I have a daughter who wanted a prom dress, and the prom dress was way outside the budget that I thought a prom dress should be. Well, I thought a prom dress shouldn't cost over $20, so I do have a problem, right? But I upped it to somewhere around $250. I don't know how much, whatever. To me, it was still more than I paid for my first house, okay? But at any rate, she called and said, Dad, this is the only prom dress I could wear. I've got to wear this prom dress. If I don't wear this prom dress, it's just on and on and on with this wonderful. You know, I saw a wonderful book about how to raise teenage daughters. The title of it is Get Out of My Life, but first drive me and Cheryl to the mall, all right? That's the actual title. It's a good book. And so I told Serena, I said, it's just beyond the budget. I've got a certain amount of money that I'm willing to put for it. And she said, but I've already seen myself wearing it. I've already tried it on. I have a picture of myself in the dress in my living room, and I've already showed it to the guy who was taking me to the prom. I mean, it was this whole thing about, and she already saw herself in it. I said, well, if you see yourself in it, then you're going to have to also see yourself as earning the difference between what I'm willing to pay. And she drew up a contract. She went onto the computer, and on the background of the computer, you know, where they have these little background things they put on, there was 500 pictures of the dress, all right? And she signed a contract and said, I'll babysit, I'll do this, I'll do that, and I will pay the difference. And she did, and she wore the dress, because she understood that you treat yourself as if you already are what you'd like to become. There's a genius in you. You have to treat yourself as if you already were that genius. There's something you're completely capable of. See yourself as already there. Then you'll act upon those thoughts, because the ancestor to every action, said Emerson, is a thought. The next principle is called treasuring your divinity. Treasuring your divinity. There's a wonderful observation that I saw from Emerson in Self-Reliance. It's about trusting your divinity, knowing that you are connected to your source, knowing that you are a divine creation and that there are no accidents. He said, a man should learn to detect and watch that gleam of light which flashes across his mind from within, more than the luster of the firmament of bards and sages. Yet he dismisses without notice his own thought, because it's his own. In every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with a certain alienated majesty. We often reject our thoughts, and we see the things that we think of as grand and as genius, and we reject them because they're our own. Treasuring our divinity instead of being terrified of it. Knowing that I am always connected to my source. There is no way that I cannot, because it is in you, and I am in you, and you are in me, and you can never be separated from it. There is no place that this source is not. It grows everybody's fingernails. It beats everybody's hearts. It digests everybody's foods. It opens all the flowers, and you're always connected to it. And finally, the last principle I call wisdom is avoiding all thoughts which weaken you. You know, every thought has an energy, just like everything else in the universe. And if you have a thought of shame, it will weaken your muscles. And what is your heart but a muscle? If you raise a child who believe in shame and feel ashamed of themselves, every time they think that shameful thought, they will be weakened. And if you have a thought of fear, and if you have a thought of stress, and you have a thought of anguish and anxiety, all of these thoughts and many more are the thoughts that will always weaken you. When you are having a thought that you know is disempowering you, shift it. Shift it to one that is empowering rather than disempowering. And the thoughts that empower are thoughts of neutrality and willingness and love, and ultimately thoughts of divinity. And when you see a troubled person who is out there struggling at the highest level of unity consciousness or God consciousness or spiritual consciousness, you recognize yourself in all that you see. There, but for the grace of God, go I. And I am connected to that person. Changing your thoughts. I appeared on the Tonight Show many years ago, several times, quite a few times. And I remember coming home from the Tonight Show, and I was walking along the beach, and they had taped the show the night before, and I was out for a walk, and a woman who lived in the Northeast stopped me, and she said, didn't I see you last night on the, how could you be here? I said, well, I flew the red eye, and I was walking along, and she said, you know, we're moving down here. She said, what are the people like here? What's it like? And I said to her, I said, well, what are they like where you live? She said, well, she said, I live in a very big city, and she said, they're very pushy, and people are not very kind, and they don't have time for you, and she said, it's really not very pleasant. She said, that's one of the reasons I'm leaving there. I said, well, that's pretty much what you're going to find here. That's basically what the people are like here. On the way back on the same day, someone else who had seen me the night before on The Tonight Show, who had lived in the Midwest, stopped me and asked me almost the same question. She said, you live here? I said, yes. She said, well, my husband and I are moving here and we're looking for a school. She said, what are the people like here? What's it like here? I said, what are they like in Chicago where you live? She said, oh, she said, it's the Midwest. She said, people are very friendly, they're open, they open their homes to you, they're very loving, they're very kind. She said, it's a wonderful place. She said, I love that, I'm going to really miss that. I said, that's pretty much what you're going to find here. It's what you expect, it's what you think about that expands. It's what Emerson taught us. The ancestor to every action is a thought. Change your thoughts, and you change your world. Change your expectations, and you change around what you begin to manifest and see showing up in your life. Thank you very much.
I think the most important thing that you can get out of this is to understand that you are a choice-making individual, and that all of the conditions that you find yourself in your life, all of the circumstances of your life, all of the emotional reactions that you have to all of the people and all of the things and events and so on that take place in your life are really choices. And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people to get, because they're raised to believe that I can't help the way I feel. I have a right to be miserable when somebody treats me in a certain way. I can't help it. I've always been that way. It's just my nature. It's just the kind of person that I am.
This waiter was directly from Italy and was serving this wonderful pasta and all of these things. And he was a madman. He was a maniac. Every customer was getting him all upset. He would talk to the other head waiters and running back and forth and getting himself all worked up. Finally, I said, come on over here. He said, what are you doing this for? I do this all the time. You do therapy wherever you go, right? I said, what are you taking this so serious? All you're doing is serving spaghetti. It's no big deal. I said to him, you know, before you're 50 years old, you're going to have a heart attack. Guarantee it, if you continue to behave that way every day. He said, look, what do you expect from me? I'm Italian. So, oh, well, that explains it. I mean, his rationale for his behavior was, I can't do anything about it, I inherited it. You know, I just got deficient anger genes. I mean, I've heard kids say that, you know, when they're failing math. I can't help it. My father was lousy at math, my grandfather was lousy. I inherited, you know, deficient math genes. It's just not my fault. I can't do anything about it. The fact is that anything that goes on inside of you that is immobilizing, that gets in your way, that keeps you from functioning in the ways that you would like to function, that stops you from reaching your goals, whatever they may be in your life, anything inside, you choose. It's yours. You own it all. And if you don't like anything about yourself, anything, are you shy? Are you nervous? Are you afraid? Are you somebody who can't handle getting up in front of groups because it scares you? Are you someone who gets angry too much? Do you find yourself being manipulated and controlled by other people too often? Are you afraid to stand up for what you believe? Are you a terrible cook? Are you lousy at tennis? You haven't got a backhand? Whatever it may be, it doesn't make any difference. You are the sum total of the choices that you make in your life. If you don't buy that, if you buy into another system, which a lot of psychologists will teach you, which is it's in your unconscious, you can't help it. After all, you're a middle child. What do you expect from a middle child? You know, certainly can't have any identity of your own. Or maybe you're an only child. Oh, God. Maybe you're the youngest of 12. You had 11 parents, you know, all your life. Somebody telling you what to do from the time you, or maybe you were the oldest and you had to be a parent for 9 others or whatever. You can use any excuse that you want, or you can just say, the devil made me do it, or it's God's fault. You know, a lot of people blame God. God and mother are most responsible for all of the things that are wrong with us, you know. The classic, the one I heard over and over and over again in all the years. And I announced it on network television one night. I said, I came here tonight for one reason. I want to tell everybody in America that your mother liked your sister better. I heard it every day for 20 years. It must be true. I can't do it. My mother liked my sister better. No wonder I can't. She was the one that got all the attention. I didn't get anything. Her pictures and all the photographs. Nothing for me. I know some of you don't have a sister, and you think, well, then that's not the reason. She wanted one. Really. And she would have liked her better. I guarantee it, It's taking responsibility for everything that goes on in your life, which is what Wayne Dyer is about, if you really want to take it home to anybody else. No blame is allowed for anything that goes on in your life. Virtually everything in your life boils down to what kinds of attitudes, what kinds of beliefs do you have about any given situation. You try to set your expectations in such a way so that you understand that your life is nothing more than a series of choices.
So many people ask the question when they want to live a life of meaning, how can I do it when I'm around so many people who are operating at lower levels? You've missed the point if you're asking yourself that question. If you're living with somebody, a spouse, for example, family members, people that you work with, neighbors and so on, who are living at lower levels of energy than you, you cannot be dragged down by their low energy. That's not possible. That's not how the universe works. The reason that you feel dragged down is because you join them in their energy. You become within yourself what they are. In other words, the sentence, you make me angry, you make me depressed by your behavior, really says that I see your depression, I see your anger, I see your hatred, I see your prejudice, and I'll have some of that too, and I'll hate you for hating me. And I'll be angry at you for being angry at me. Or being around you sort of depresses me because you're so depressing that you cause me to be depressed. That isn't the case at all. It's because that person's depression is something you decide you'll align with. Now, if you take the reverse, if you take Jesus, who would walk amongst the prostitutes and would walk amongst the thieves, he didn't say, I'm not going to go over there and talk to those thieves. They took my sandals the last time. I'm not having that happen to me again. It's not, and I don't want to be around those hookers because, they're going to be tempting and so on. He didn't do that. When he would walk among the thieves would no longer want to steal. Don't you remember on Golgotha? At the crucifixion? He was between two thieves. Both of them were redeemed by being in his presence. Even the least among you can do all that I have done, and even greater. That's where you have to be. You have to be in a place, and remember that no amount of your depression is going to undepress somebody else. See, mothers know this. I watch this with the mother of my children, Marcy, a woman I love very, very much. And I would watch her in the middle of the night. I would be laying over here, and she'd be here, and the baby would cry. And instead of her saying, like so many people speak about, that crying really just upsets me, and it really upsets me. Why do you keep crying? It's like, you're just doing it. You're upsetting me. You're making me upset. She didn't do any of that. She didn't say that babies crying would make me depressed. What she would say is, I will bring my high energy of love and healing and feeding to you, and this will help you to raise your level of happiness. And it always worked. For me, a surly waiter is a wonderful challenge. My kids will tell you that. If I get somebody in there and you can tell that they're in a hurry, they're not going to be a little bit rude, they've been rushed and all of that, I know I can turn this person around. And I'll even make it a contest. Say, just watch. It's going to happen. I'm going to get this person turned around. And all you have to do is say to them, I know you're having a tough time tonight, and you probably didn't want to have any more, but I said, you are so lucky tonight. You got somebody who came here to make your life as good as I can possibly make it tonight. Is there anything I can do to make this waiting experience happy for you? What's your name? Where'd you come from? You have an accent? What is it like where you live? And within minutes of just elevating my awareness and being happy and letting them know that this is going to be a pleasant experience for them. And I do this, before you know it, they're bringing you free desserts. We don't have to pay for anything. Here's a complimentary pass. Come the next time. By the way, my mother works over at this place. Would you like to get a massage? Those kinds of things happen all the time. When you get your ego out of the way, when you dissolve your connection to this gross worldly world of conflict and begin to just say, I can turn this around. The lady who cleans the toilets. Now, to me, anybody who in my life cleans toilets for me and changes my bedding and makes my room nice, that's an angel. That's not somebody that I deserve to disrespect. That's an angel who's come in and willing to serve me and work for very little. That's always for me, that's $100. I seek her out and I just say, I just appreciate you. And I do this before I go to sleep. I do this before I even take the room. And it's just, a $100 bill to me is a piece of paper. For her, and it isn't even what it does for her financially. It's like what you do is you take people that she looked surly, she looked angry, she looked like she didn't want to be in there, she looked like just another like white howley in here who's I've got to deal with. She was a lady from Mexico, and she just looked like she didn't. And when I just took her over and I put my arm around her, I said, you know what? I am so happy that you are here to help and serve me, and I just want to express my gratitude to you. You can take every incident of people who are operating at levels that keep them tied and connected to the gross worldly realm, and you can shift it. You can shift it. Because you practice a life of meaning is one in which you elevate your awareness to such a place that no matter who enters this realm, if they don't come with love, they don't get in. They don't get in. Inside of this shell of a body, this shell, this thing that I live in, inside here is my inner organs. And inside of those organs is an invisible intelligence. And inside there, in this little chamber inside of me, there's a sign that says, do not enter unless you come with love. So you can insult my body. You can be angry. You can even do things to my insides. But in here, where I live, do not attempt to enter unless you come with love. That's all I have in there. And you can do this. He presents this in Power versus Force that seems to bring it all home very clearly. Let's attempt to understand all of this through an example. Imagine a bum on a street corner in a fashionable neighborhood. Can you get a picture of that? Bum, street corner, fashionable neighborhood. In a fashionable neighborhood in a big city stands an old man in tattered clothes, alone, leaning against the corner of an elegant brownstone. Look at him from the perspective of various levels of consciousness and note the differences in how he appears. From the bottom of the scale, at a level of 20, the level of shame, this bum is dirty, disgusting, and disgraceful. And that's how you view him, and you know people who do. And you may know yourself as having done that at one time. From the level of 30, which is guilt, he would be blamed for his condition. He deserves what he gets. He's probably a lazy welfare cheat. At 50, hopelessness, his plight would appear desperate, damning evidence that society can't do anything about homelessness. At 75, grief, the old man looks tragic, friendless, and forlorn. At a consciousness level of 100, fear, we might see him as threatening, a social menace. Perhaps we could call the police before he commits some crime. At 125, desire,
He might represent a frustrating problem. Why doesn't somebody do something? At 150, anger. The old man might look like he could be violent. Or on the other hand, you might become furious that such conditions exist in the first place. At 175, we're still at levels that still weaken you. Pride. He could be seen as an embarrassment or as lacking the self-respect to better himself. And at 200, courage. Now we're at the distinction between truth and falsehood and that which empowers rather than weakens. We're at power rather than force. At 200, we might be motivated to wonder if there's a local homeless shelter. All he needs is a job and a place to live. At 250, neutrality, the bum looks okay. Maybe even interesting. Live and let live, we might say. After all, he's not hurting anyone. At 310, willingness, we might decide to go down and see what we can do to cheer this fellow up. Or volunteer some time, perhaps, at a local mission. At 350, acceptance, the man on the corner appears intriguing. He probably has an interesting story to tell. He's where he is for reasons we may never understand. At 400, reason, he's a symptom of the current economic and social malaise, or perhaps a good subject for in-depth psychological study. Now we move to the higher levels. At the higher levels, the old man begins to look not only interesting, but friendly, then lovable. Perhaps we would then be able to see that he was, in fact, one who had transcended social limits and gone free. Maybe a joyful old guy with the wisdom of age in his face and the serenity that comes from indifference to material things. At 600, peace, the highest level any of us will ever attain here. He is revealed as one's own self in a temporary condition. Can you see the difference? Can you see the distinctions between how we look at things? A simple bum standing on a corner and all of the attendant ways that we have of processing it, some of which will weaken us individually and collectively, and some of which will empower us individually and collectively.
There's nothing natural about living a life filled with stress and anxiety, having feelings of despair and depression, and needing pills to tranquilize yourself. Agitated thoughts that produce high blood pressure, a nervous stomach, persistent feelings of discomfort, an inability to relax or sleep, and frequent displays of displeasure and outrage are violating your natural state. Believe it or not, you have the power to create the naturally stress-free and tranquil life you desire. You can utilize this power to attract frustration or joy, anxiety or peace. When you're in harmony with the 7 faces of intention, you can access and pull from the source of all in order to fulfill your intention of being stress-free and tranquil. So if it's natural to have feelings of well-being, why is it that we seem to experience so much unwellness and tension? The answer to this question provides you with the key that leads to the peaceful life you desire. Stress is a desire of the ego. We speak of stress as if it were present in the world as something that attacks us. We say things like, I'm having an anxiety attack, as if anxiety is a combatant. But the stress in your body is rarely the result of external forces or entities attacking you. It's the result of the weakened connecting link to intention caused by your belief that ego is who you are. You are peace and joy, but you've allowed your ego to dominate your life. The following lighthearted way to stop taking yourself so seriously is from a book by Rosamund and Benjamin Zander. He's the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, titled The Art of Possibility. It illustrates in a delightful way how we allow ego to create many of the problems we encounter that we label stress and anxiety. It's called Rule Number 6. I'll share it with you. 2 prime ministers are sitting in a room discussing affairs of state. Suddenly a man bursts in, apoplectic with fury, shouting and stamping and banging his fist on the desk. The resident prime minister admonishes him. Peter, he says, kindly remember Rule Number 6. Whereupon Peter is instantly restored to complete calm, apologizes and withdraws.
The politicians return to their conversation only to be interrupted yet again 20 minutes later by an hysterical woman gesticulating wildly, her hair flying. Again, the intruder is greeted with the words, "Marie, please remember, rule number 6. Complete calm descends once more, and she, too, withdraws with a bow and an apology. When the scene is repeated for a third time, the visiting prime minister addresses his colleague. "My dear friend," he says, "I've seen many things in my life, but never anything as remarkable as this. Would you be willing to share with me the secret of rule number 6? "Very simply," replies the resident prime minister. "Rule number 6 is, don't take yourself so damn seriously." "Ah," says his visitor, "that's a fine rule." After a moment of pondering, he inquires, "And what, may I ask, are the other rules?" "Oh, there aren't any." As you encounter stress, pressure, or anxiety in your life, remember rule number 6. At the moment you realize you're thinking stressful thoughts. By noticing and discontinuing the inner dialogue that causes stress, you may be able to prevent its physical symptoms. What are the inner thoughts that produce stress? I'm more important than those around me. My expectations aren't being met. I shouldn't have to wait. I'm too important. I'm the customer here, and I demand attention. No one else has these pressures. All of these above, along with a potentially endless inventory of rule number 6 thoughts, are from the ego's bag of tricks. You aren't your work, your accomplishments, your possessions, your home, your family, your anything. You're an aspect of the power of intention, dressed in a physical human body, intended to experience and enjoy life on earth. This is the intention that you want to bring to the presence of stress. You must become conscious of the need to activate thought responses that match your intention. These new responses will become habitual and replace your old habit of responding in stress-producing ways. When you examine segments of stress-producing incidents, you always have a choice. Do I stay with thoughts that produce stress within me, or do I work to activate thoughts that make stress impossible? Here's another easy tool that will help you to replace the habit of choosing anxiety and stress. I call them 5 magic words. Here they are. I want to feel good. I want to feel good. Your intention here is to be tranquil and stress-free. When you feel good, you're connected to your intentions, regardless of what goes on around you or what others expect you to feel. Many events will transpire in which your conditioned response is to feel bad. Be aware of these outer incidents and say the 5 magic words. I want to feel good. In that precise moment, ask yourself if feeling bad is going to make the situation any better. You'll discover that the only thing that feeling bad accomplishes in response to outer situations is to plummet you into anxiety, despair, depression, and of course, stress. Instead, ask yourself in that moment what thought you can have that will make you feel good. When you discover that it's responding with kindness and love to the bad feeling, which is quite different from wallowing around in it, you'll begin experiencing a shift in your emotional state. Now you're in vibrational harmony with your source, since the power of intention knows only peace, kindness, and love. I assure you that your decision to feel good is a way of connecting to spirit. It isn't an indifferent response to events. By feeling good, you become an instrument of peace, and it's through this channel that you eradicate problems. By feeling bad, you stay in the energy field that creates resistance to positive change and experience a stressful, anxious state as a byproduct. The things you call problems will perpetually present themselves to you. They'll never go away. Resolve one, and another one will surface. You'll never get it done. I urge you to simply accept the fact that you'll never get it all done and begin to live more fully in the only moment that you have, which is now. The secret to removing the harmful effects of feeling stressed and under pressure is to be in the now. Announce out loud to yourself and all who are willing to listen to you, I'm an incomplete being. I'll always be incomplete because I can never get it done. Therefore, I choose to feel good while I'm in the moment, attracting into my life the manifestations of my desires. I am complete in my incompleteness. All resistance melts away when you can feel complete in your incompleteness.
I wake up every night around 3 o'clock in the morning. And there was a great poet, his name was Rumi, many, many years ago. He said, the morning breeze has secrets to tell you. Do not go back to sleep. Do not go back to sleep. Do not go back to sleep. And many of the books that I've written when I've been awakened, and there's something, what is it? What is it that awakens me? It's like I can almost tell you the exact time. It's like, because in a film I did years ago called The Shift, I talk they show a clock, it's 3:13 a.m., almost to the second. Every single night there's something. Is that angels? Is that divine source? Is that someone saying, this is your purpose, this is the time, there's no distractions?
The thing we most want to say is that we're with you saying that all the time. So what's interesting to us is that that's the time that you decide to listen.
Right.
And,
but there's nobody else around to distract me.
and that's the important conversation to have. So what is it about that time? What is it that's happening there that makes you more resonant, that makes you more receptive? And it is that the momentum of your thought has stopped. So there is no contradictory vibration going on within you. So you're more likely to hear. The way we've been defining that most recently is that when you wake up in the morning, you have the potential of being in that highest frequency, because while you slumber, your point of attraction, the momentum of your point of attraction stops. So when you first wake up, before you begin thinking thoughts of what went wrong yesterday or what you have to do today, you're in your greatest potential of that pure positive energy. So if you can focus there and allow a little momentum to get going, what happens is it isn't something that just happens, it's something that you focus yourself into being. But when you focus yourself into that, you tune in, is the best way of describing it. You tune in to that source energy consciousness who has always been aware of everything you're doing, but there's a big difference when you tune into it and you consciously are aware of it. In other words, source is there for everyone all the time. We don't need to talk you into that. We're always there. But when you know it, when you're not doing that thing you do that is preventing you from knowing that, that's when you have those wonderful moments. And you can do that all the time. So sometimes you have beliefs that do not serve you. But when you first awaken, those beliefs are quiet enough that you can find a fresh one that comes from source, that is about who you really are and what you really know.
Is the reverse of that if you awaken and you have a very positive thought? That is, I'm going to heal myself.
Well, that's a wonderful thing. Once you get that momentum going,
but
if we were standing in your physical shoes, if the thought felt good, we'd think it. We'd think more about it. We'd talk about it. We'd write it down. We would discuss it with others. We would deliberately encourage that momentum. But if it's an easy thought, if it feels uncomfortable, then we would do our best to generalize it. The more specific you become in a thought, the more momentum. The more general you become in a thought, the slower the momentum.
Can you have a thought, like I talk a lot about the I am discourses. I am as the name of source, another name for source. If you are feeling weak, but you have a thought saying, I am strong, I mean, that's one of the lines from the book of Joel, let the weak man say, I am strong. If you continuously say, I am strong, or I am well, or I am healed, or I am wealthy, or I am positive, or I'm loving.
It makes sense. It makes sense, but there is a effort factor, a backfiring factor that sometimes every subject is really two subjects, wanted and absence of it. So if you are feeling not strong and you say, I am strong, which end of the stick are you activating? And what we've noticed is the more effort you are applying, usually you're trying to overcome what you've really got going on vibrationally with words. And instead of it working the way you want it to, it works in reverse, because when you're trying really hard, it's an indicator that you're trying to use your words and your actions and your affirmations to compensate for vibration that you didn't get started off on the right foot. We think affirmations are wonderful, but we would make sure that we are feeling really good when we affirm, because the universe doesn't hear what you say. The universe hears what you mean.
I wrote a book years ago called Inspiration, using the two words inspire, inspirado, inspire, in spirit. And there was a great teacher on this planet a couple of thousand years ago named Patanjali, and he said, when you are inspired, by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, that all of your thoughts break their bonds, your mind transcends limitations, your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new and a great and a wonderful world.
Perfect.
And then he said, dormant forces, when you're inspired, dormant forces, faculties, and talents come alive. And you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you've ever dreamt yourself to be. It's almost as if you discover yourself to be God or Source or the Tao or Divine Mind or whatever name we place on this source energy that you speak of and speak to us from.
Authentic power comes from your soul, that magical place that is always within you. The examples of people who have large amounts of money but are purposeless in their soul are everywhere. Famous actors and actresses plagued by drug habits, committing suicide at what others thought of as the peak of their careers, divorce rates among the very wealthy skyrocketing along with painful courtroom squabbles over who gets what. When you're on purpose, doing what you know you are here for, and forgetting about what will come into your life in the way of money and wealth, then ironically, money and wealth arrive in your life in amounts sufficient to provide you with a life of prosperity. And this is real magic in action. I can say this because it has always worked for me. When I chased after money, I never had enough. When I got my life on purpose and focused on giving of myself and everything that arrived in my life, then I was prosperous. What follows are some guidelines that you can use as you start to befriend your own miracle-making potential. First, of course, is to disdain all disbelief. Send scarcity out of your mind and refuse to have those kinds of thoughts. When an old, habitual scarcity thought begins to enter your consciousness, simply say, next. It will remind you that the old thought is now finished, and you are entering a new, prosperous thought process. Using next as a magic word will remind you to get on with the magic of believing, rather than the anguish of doubt. Study the world of matter, of all material possessions at the subatomic level. Begin to note that everything material is nothing more than empty space when viewed from a closer perspective. See the folly of making that material world your master. Just like your thoughts, the material world is limitless. It is without beginning and end, totally abundant and totally available to you if you know what your true purpose here is. Develop a trust in your intuitive inner voices. It has been said that those who are classified as lucky are essentially those who go with their hunches rather than what others have prescribed. If you feel a strong inner inclination to change jobs or to try a particular investment, then place more trust in that hunch. This is your divine guidance encouraging you to take a risk, to ignore the ways of the herd, to be the unique individual that you are. Learn to trust your intuition and allow your physical body to travel the path that you are feeling within. Work at replacing thoughts within you that reflect the scarcity consciousness. If you elect to constantly tell the world what is missing in your life and how you can never get ahead, it is because you are in possession of an inner space that believes strongly in lacks. You can replace negative inner slogans with new thoughts that include abundance, plenty, bountifulness, profit, ease, and the like. When you see these thoughts as the way your universe is and process your world in these ways, the words and concepts will be your way of presenting yourself. You will begin to act on the new thoughts, just like you previously acted on the old ones to create your life circumstances. Develop a conviction in your heart that prosperity truly belongs to you. To think about prosperity is a great beginning, but you must make those thoughts that you are entitled to prosperity into actual beliefs. Merely wishing for it is not enough, for nothing will truly be in your life until you reach a conviction within you that it belongs there. Trust in the divineness that you are, and that is the perfection of the universe. Remember, when you trust in yourself, you trust in the wisdom that created you. And obviously, when you doubt yourself, you question that same divine intelligence that brought you here. Surrender and relax about it, and you will know what to do. You no longer have to worry. Prosperity will indeed come to you, and you will be creating it in a magical way. Trust in the miracle that you are, then get on with your life in a purposeful way. Get rid of the polarity that you may have about money. You have perhaps either seen money as God's blessing or as the arch enemy of spirituality. Keep in mind that if your purpose involves providing things that require money for others and for yourself, and if you are uncompromised about your own commitment to your purpose, then money will show up in your life to assist you with your heroic mission. The denouncing of money is a trap. Instead, see it as that which is manifesting in your life to assist you with your purpose. Then stay on purpose and use that money and any other physical abundance that will begin showing up in your life in larger and larger amounts to fulfill your commitment to your purpose. If money is all that you covet and you want it for the purpose of gaining power over others, then you will never get enough, because you never get enough of what you don't want. Your goal is in the invisible realm, that place where you do all of your living. Money and other symbols of prosperity arrive in your life to assist you on that path. If you miss the message, you may see lots of money come into your life, and you will also experience it disappearing. Avoid the trap of expecting your prosperity to arrive in your life through the efforts of others. You create your own life of prosperity. No one has to change in order for you to experience your own prosperity. This is an inner game, and you must leave behind your expectations of others. Take responsibility for your own feelings about prosperity, and you will eliminate any and all suffering that you experience in this context. Prosperity is something that I know can be achieved by anyone. If I can experience it coming from my scarce beginnings, then it is hard for me to imagine that anyone else cannot make it happen. You may never have thought of yourself as a person who has genius residing within you. You may have thought that genius is a word reserved for the Mozarts, Michelangelos, Einsteins, Madame Curies, Virginia Woolfs, Stephen Hawkings, and others whose lives and accomplishment have been publicized. But keep in mind that they share the same essence of consciousness that you do. They emanated from the same power of intention as you did. They have all shared the same life force animating them as you do. Your genius is in your very existence, awaiting the right circumstances to express itself. There is no such thing as luck or accidents in this purposeful universe. Not only is everything connected to everything else, but no one is excluded from the universal source called intention. And genius, since it's a characteristic of the universal source, must be universal, which means that it's in no way restricted. It's available to every single human being. It certainly can and does show up differently in every single one of us. The qualities of creativity and genius are within you, waiting your decision to match up with that power of intention. Changing your energy level to access the genius within you. Higher energy is the energy of light, which is a way of describing spiritual energy. The 7 phases of intention are the ingredients of this spiritual energy. When you shift your thoughts, emotions, and life activities into these realms and deactivate the lower energies of the ego, the God force within you begins to take over. It's so automatic that it travels faster than your thoughts. This is why your thoughts about how you did it are so bewildering. The higher energy level actually transcends thought, moving into vibrational harmony with the source energy of intention. As you release ego-dominated thoughts, which convince you that you're doing these amazing things and you are responsible for these unbelievable accomplishments, then you begin to tap into the power of intention. This is where the genius that you truly are resides. I'd like you to consider what may seem like a radical idea. Genius can show up in as many ways as there are human beings. Anything in any field that anyone has ever accomplished is shared by you. You're connected to every being that has ever lived or ever will live, and you share the same exact energy of intention that flowed through Archimedes, Leonardo da Vinci, the Virgin Mother, and Jonas Salk. You can access this energy. At the deepest level, all things and all people are composed of vibrations organized into fields that permeate the entire structure of the universe. You share these vibrations, and you are in this field. The starting point is knowing and understanding that this level of creativity and functioning called genius resides within you. Then begin to deconstruct doubts about your role here. Make a commitment to raise your energy levels to vibrate harmoniously with the field of intention, despite attempts by your ego and other egos to dissuade you. Expanding your reality. Pay attention to yourself in ways that allow the expansion of the infinite possibilities that you're potentially capable of. You may decide, as I have, that repairing an automobile and surfing in the ocean aren't what you're going to enjoy doing. You leave these activities to others, and you use your genius to engage in pursuits that please and attract you. Expand your reality to the point where you pursue what you love doing and excel at it. Involve yourself in the high energy levels of trust, optimism, appreciation, reverence, joy, and love. That means love for what you're doing, love for yourself, and love for your genius. which allows you to immerse yourself in any activity and enjoy the process of experiencing it fully. Trusting your insights. The process of appreciating your genius involves trusting those inner flashes of creative insight as being worthy of expression. Never, but never regard any creative thought that you're having as anything other than a worthy potential expression of your inner genius. The only caveat here is that these thoughts must be in vibrational harmony with the 7 faces of intention. Inner thoughts of hatred, anger, fear, despair, and destruction simply don't foster creative insights. The low-energy, ego-dominated thoughts must be replaced and converted to the power of intention. Your creative impulses are real, they're vital, they're worthy, and they crave expression. The fact that you can conceive of them is proof of this. Your thoughts are real, they're pure energy, and they're telling you to pay attention and get that connecting link to the power of intention polished up through living at different levels than you've accepted as normal or ordinary. At these levels, everyone is a genius. Appreciating the genius in others. Every person you interact with should feel the inner glow that comes from being appreciated, particularly for the ways in which they express their creativity. A core theme which strengthens the flow of the power of intention is wanting for others as much as you intend for yourself. Appreciating the genius in others attracts high levels of competent energy to you. By seeing and celebrating the creative genius, you open a channel within yourself for receiving the creative energy from the field of intention. These kinds of events of people walking by and saying, "Is this your strawberry ice cream?" And you say, "Wow, I was just thinking about that. Ooh, what's going on? How did that happen? Where did that come from?" Or you're thinking about your sister and you're just having a conversation with her. You haven't seen her in 5 years and you go to the phone and she's calling, or, you know, endless numbers of these kinds of synchronistic events that almost like you have a collaboration with fate they become more frequent, they become more noticeable, they aren't something that you say, "Oh, how could this happen? Isn't that interesting?" Or it's just chaos, because there's no such thing as chaos,
no,
is there?
It's
chaos.
only the appearance of chaos. There is nothing in chaos. It's like when you go to, say, let's say you go to New York City, and the best example I can use of chaos is Grand Central Station, okay?
Yeah.
So everybody is going hither and thither every which way and what, and you think it's chaotic. But each person is going to a specific destination. And not only that, if you were to announce a track change from track 11 to track 10, you'd see a further intensification of the chaos. But in fact, it is an elaboration of the underlying order. So in all this seeming chaos, there's an underlying order. And it's not only that you should go and get flowers wherever you go. The Vedic expression is, when you're in that state, then wherever you go, flowers will bloom.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for them. You choose where you want to go, and the flowers will bloom on your path.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I know that. I do. And I've seen it happen, and I believe you can take this kind of consciousness and make it work, not only for you, but for those around you, or for the world. That the thoughts, the images, the vision, the ability to manifest, to create what you want for yourself. You see, if enough of us in the world believe, for example, in a nuclear holocaust, just taking it to something that affects all of us, and certainly all of our children who are going to inherit this place from it. If enough of us believe that exists, doesn't it? I mean, that's a consciousness. And if enough of us believe it, we will collectively begin to act upon that consciousness, that fear, if you will. Because fear is really, to me, there's like fear and love in there. You know, I mean, hate isn't the opposite of love. Fear is the opposite of love. When you eradicate the fear, like if I'm afraid of something happening, an opinion that somebody might have of me, somebody doing something to me that might not, somebody taking my money away from me, somebody, an IRS audit, whatever it may be that is fearful, I'm creating those pheromones that you were talking about, those fearful pheromones. I like that. That could be a rock group. You know, the fearful pheromones. Watch, they'll be on TV tomorrow. You create that. When I have that fearful thought, I find myself, I use a technique that I'm writing about in Real Magic, where I just say, I use the word next. Just like, okay, here's that thought, and I say to myself, Next. Like that thought, I don't need any, I don't need that fearful thought, or that fearful thought is going to create the very thing that it is that I'm anticipating. So I just remind myself of next. And the stress inside, the anxiety, whatever, seems to dissipate. And I substitute fear with love, with harmony, with bliss, with ease, with whatever you want to call that. And the minute that I do that, the minute that I just shift that thought, my physiology changes. I am creating molecules with my mind that create love and harmony instead of fear, and the problem is gone.
Unconditional love is really nothing more than the absence of fear. The ego is where fears originate, with constant messages that you are incomplete and need more, that you need to win to be better in comparison to others. With its unceasing pressure, the ego keeps you in a constant state of turmoil and anxiety. Here is where all fears are birthed and nurtured within you. To accept unconditional love as your premise for living, you will have to tell the ego that there is no need to prove anything, and that all you want or hope for is already here. With this kind of declaration, fear is removed from your life and is replaced with love. Remember the biblical quote, "Perfect love casteth out all fear."
The world you live in is an intelligent system in which every moving part is coordinated by every other moving part. There's a universal life force that supports and orchestrates everything. It all works together in perfect harmony. You are one of those moving parts. You showed up here in this body that you inhabit, precisely on time. Your body will leave here with the same precision. You're an essential piece of this complex system. Here you are in this intelligent system that has no beginnings and no ends, in which all of the galaxies move in harmony with each other. You must have shown up here for a reason. Khalil Gibran said, "When you are born, your work is placed in your heart." Take a moment right now and point to yourself. Your finger is very likely pointing right at your heart, not at your brain, but at your heart. This is who you are. The constant beating of your heart in and out and in, is a symbol of your infinite connection to the always present heartbeat of God, or the universal intelligence. Your left brain calculates, figures things out, analyzes, and comes up with the most logical choices for you. It thinks, thinks, thinks. Your right brain represents your intuitive side. This is the part of you that goes beyond reason and analysis. It's the part of you that feels things, that's sensitive to love, that's emotional about what's important to you. Your right brain allows you to tear up as you hold your babies or bask in the beauty of a glorious day. Your left brain can analyze it, while your right brain lets you feel it. Pick a situation and ask yourself if what you know or what you feel is most important to you. Generally, what you'll take care of first depends on the situation and circumstances you're in. Your intellect can be figuring out exactly how you're supposed to act in a relationship when things are collapsing or when they're rapturous. And then there are times when what you feel will supersede what you know. If you are feeling fearful, scared, lonely, or on the other hand thrilled, loving, and ecstatic, these will be the dominant forces you'll act upon. These are the times when your right brain is right. Your right brain will always lead you passionately to your purpose. Listening to your right brain. There's an intuitive, invisible presence that's always with you. I picture this presence as a nagging little creature who sits on your right shoulder and reminds you when you've lost your sense of purpose. Listen to your invisible companion. Express the music that you hear and ignore what everyone else around you thinks you should be doing. As Thoreau put it, if a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music he hears, however measured or far away. Be willing to accept that others may even see you as having betrayed them. But you haven't betrayed your music, your purpose. Listen to your music, and do what you know you have to do to feel whole, to feel complete, and to feel as if you're fulfilling your destiny. You'll never be at peace if you don't get that music out and let it play. Let the world know why you're here, and do it with passion. Being passionate means taking risks. You may indeed find yourself living a comfortable life when you don't follow your instincts. You're aware of that nagging companion saying to you, "This may look right, but does it feel right? Are you doing what you came here to do?" For many people, the answer is, "How do I know what my heroic mission is?" You'll find your passion in what inspires you the most. And what does the word inspire mean? It derives from the words in spirit. When you're inspired, you never have to ask about your purpose. You're living it. For one of my children, it's about riding horses and being at the stables. She's in heaven when on horseback or even cleaning out a stall filled with horse manure. Another daughter is only inspired when she's singing, writing music, or performing. She's felt that way since she was 2. For another, it's her artwork and design that makes her feel purposeful. For yet another, it's designing websites and creating computer programs for others. For me, it's writing and speaking and creating products to help people become self-reliant. This has always been my passion, even as a young boy.
When I go before an audience and I sit down to meditate, I repeat the mantra, how may I serve, how may I serve, how may I serve? How can I get my ego out of this presentation, out of this program, out of what it is that I am doing, and my needs to have rewards and to have applause and to have people tell me how wonderful I am? How can I get all of that out? If you're a dentist, you can give a flower to every patient. You can call them in the evening and ask how they're doing, as my dentist always does. You can make your waiting room a place where people look forward to coming by putting in programs like this for people to listen to while they're being drilled on. It doesn't make any difference. If you're a cab driver, you can make your cab a place of service. You can do a little bit extra. And the irony is when you turn your life over to being a statesman and ultimately to being a spiritual being, this attitude allows this free-flowing, unconditional, loving energy that is the divine universe, that is God, to enter into your life. And it just keeps going. You're just keeping the channels open, folks. That's all you're doing. You're just keeping it open. And you're aware of every little cue that comes along that blocks that channel. The minute that it's there, it's an angry thought, it's a judgmental thought, it's a stressful thought. The minute that it shows up, you replace it with an attitude of service, gratitude, generosity, and it leaves. The part of you that knows, the part of you that is infinite, as the poet suggests, the part of you that is every place, is also in all that you would like to see show up in your life. And if you keep a generous, grateful, serving attitude, you'll never block it.